Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back. In this video, I'm going to be ranking every episode of What If Season 2. There will be spoilers in this video, so if you've not seen the season, go watch it and then come back. And yeah, so What If Season 2 just came out on Disney Plus, I think like 9 days ago or 10 days ago, however much it is now. They released one episode a day, and in this video, I'm going to be ranking my enjoyment of them from worst to best. So without wasting too much time, let's get into it. So episode 4, what if Iron Man crashed into the Grandmaster? I gotta tell you, I didn't enjoy it. I didn't like this episode. I think the voice actor for Tony Stark, he's good. He sounds like Robert Downey Jr., right? Like if you're really not listening, and if you he's got the tone right, but just his voice sometimes strays a little bit, so that's a little bit annoying. But so that really took me out of it when I was watching a lot of this episode, is that this is not Robert Downey Jr., and also he felt like such a goof in this, he didn't feel like the normal Tony Stark. I know Tony Stark is a goof, but he just didn't feel like he's a serious goof, right? He takes things seriously when they need to be taken seriously. But this one, he just felt like a clown, pretty much, and it was hard to watch. And also, I got to tell you, the voice actress who played Gamora did not sound anything like Zoe Saldana whatsoever. I didn't even believe that was Gamora. It was fun to hear Jeff Goldblum again, and some of the visuals were cool. It was called Return to Sakaar, but for the most part, I wasn't interested in the plot. I felt Taika Waititi as Korg wasn't really working. And so, yeah, for those reasons, I didn't enjoy this episode much at all. I thought it had some cool things, but for the most part, it was definitely the weakest episode of What If Season 2 for me. But, yeah, that's it, I guess. It just wasn't that great. I was very disappointed with this episode. In 8th place, we have episode 3, What If Happy Hogan Saved Christmas? Now, this was definitely better than episode 4 of Tony going to Sakaar, but for the most part, again, I didn't enjoy this episode. I thought it was cool to hear Jon Favreau return to voice the character, but the whole arc with him becoming it was Freak is what they called it, right? Like Purple Hulk. I didn't like that. I didn't really gel with the Die Hard aspect of it. And I saw a lot of people saying that this episode was sort of like similar to that of Age of Ultron and like the earlier Iron Man movies. What were they talking about? It was nothing like that at all. It felt like a massive goof, and I understand that's the tone of this show overall, is like to be more silly and fun, but then it doesn't feel like the characters when it's just like so cartoonish and so like skewed down for children, right? That's what really annoys me. But it was cool to see the return of Sam Rockwell as Justin Hammer. I thought that was cool because he is an underrated villain in the MCU, and Sam Rockwell is a great actor, so seeing him again was cool, and I hope to see him again at some point in live action, perhaps for Armor Wars. But yeah, for the most part, I really didn't enjoy this episode. I thought Kat Dennings as Darcy was kind of just annoying in this episode. Same with Happy Hogan. It didn't gel with me. Even for a Christmas themed episode, which I did watch on Christmas Eve, I didn't enjoy it. So that is disappointing to see. But look, it's cool to hear some of the OG cast back for this though. We got Chris Hemsworth was in here. I think Jeremy Renner, I don't know, was he voicing his character? I'm not sure. With Jon Favreau, Kat Dennings, Sam Rockwell. That was cool to hear. But yeah, for the most part, I didn't enjoy this episode. In 7th place, we have episode 1, What If Nebula Joined the Nova Corps? Now, I think this episode was much better than the previous two on my list. I think the Blade Runner aesthetic fits really, really well with Nebula as a character, and I really dug that whole aspect of it, and I like how Marvel are sort of experimenting with the genre in this show particularly. So I thought that was really cool. It was cool to see Nebula in this sort of setting of like a noir sort of futuristic detective sort of thing, sort of style. So that was cool to see. I really enjoyed that. I like to see the return of Yon-Rogg, played by Jude Law, who's it's something I really like about this show is how they take these characters, these side characters from previous movies, and bring them in new and creative ways. I like the way they used him, like to betray Nebula, but she knew the whole time. That was cool. I enjoyed the whole concept of having a Xandar be closed in completely. So yeah, for the most part, I enjoyed this episode, but again, something else I wasn't really gelling with is this was the first episode, so I wasn't really getting the vibe. I was sort of watching it more as like expecting it to be a short, and I wasn't, well, not like, I knew it wasn't going to be a short, but I wasn't like taking it as seriously as I should have. I didn't like the stuff with like the New Guardians with like Korg and Gru. They didn't really gel with me that much, so that's the reason as to why this episode is so low on the list. Coming in at 6th place is episode 2 of What If Season 2. What if Peter Quill attacked Earth's mightiest heroes? Now, this episode is set in 1980s. Something I loved about this episode was bringing together these heroes from the previous generation that we've met throughout the MCU. Like, again, Hank Pym, Wendy Lawson, that's her name, right? Wendy Lawson. The Lawrence Fishburne's character, I forget his name, he plays Giant Man / Goliath, I forget his name. But yeah, it was cool to see them be brought in, and especially Bucky as well, because we know that he was active during this time, and the Russians? I'm not sure. Kept bringing him in and out of hypersleep. So I think that's what it's called. And so he was active during this period, so it was cool to see him interact with characters like Howard Stark, for example, who he later goes on to kill. And so I enjoyed that aspect. The aspect I didn't enjoy so much was young Peter Quill and his dad. That sort of whole arc didn't really work for me. I feel like Peter Quill wasn't really Peter Quill. He was just some random child. There was no really Peter Quillisms about him. And so I was like, this is not a young Chris Pratt. This is like some random kid. But yeah, so I guess for that reason, it would be ranked lower. Also, forgot to mention King T'Chaka being in here as the previous Black Panther. That was also really cool to see. So I enjoyed that. But yeah, Peter Quill's whole thing just didn't really gel with me. And so that's why this episode isn't higher up on the list. In number 5th place is episode 6, What If Kahori Reshaped the World? Now, this is when it starts to get really good. I thought this episode was great. I had a really great time with it, and I was very surprised, to see a new original Marvel character be introduced that isn't in the comics, and have it be done so well in a 30-minute format. I thought it was really cool. I thought her powers looked awesome. I thought her characterization, that's how you say it, right? That was awesome. Learning more about her background and her motivations and stuff like that. Also, I realized this entire episode was subtitled. It was not in English, I didn't even realize that until the very end, when I was like, wait, this whole thing has not been in English. So that is just a testament to how good this episode was, because you were really locked in. And so, yeah, I thought it introduced a really cool new character into the MCU, who I really hope they use again in the future. I think Kahori is a cool new hero who I'm excited to see again in the future. Her powers were awesome. She's powered similarly to Carol Danvers through the Tesseract, but I guess they're different mediums of exposure. While Carol's was an explosion of energy onto her, Kahori was sort of fell into a lake that was imbued with Tesseract energy, something like that, right? And she goes into the other plane that her ancestors are living on. That was really cool. And something Marvel does really well is exploring other cultures through their superheroes, like Native American in this instance, for example, and Echo, African culture in Black Panther. Shang-Chi has some of that as well. And so yeah, that's something Marvel does really well, and I thought it was done really well this episode to explore what happened with colonizers and things like that. I really enjoyed this episode, and I really love Kahori as a new hero. Coming in 4th place is the season finale for What If Season 2. This episode was really, really good. I do have some problems with it, which I will address. But for the most part, I thought this episode was really, really good, really strong. A really cool way to bring Kahori back again, like I was just talking about. To see her return in the season was really cool. And to see her work with Peggy side by side was really awesome as well. And I also felt like this episode was a precursor to Secret Wars, sort of like a taste of what we could get in Secret Wars. And it was pretty epic, even if it did get a little bit ridiculous, which I'll talk about. But yeah, something about this episode also that I loved was Doctor Strange's heel turn. Was Supreme Strange's heel turn. He sort of got the Wanda treatment, from going to a morally grey sort of damaged character in season 1 of What If, and parallel that to WandaVision, moving into season 2 of What If, paralleling that to Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, where the character is basically completely butchered, and every redeemable quality is taken away just to make them a madman with power, basically gone crazy with power. And so that's something I didn't like, is to sort of strip that development and everything away from him. Also, to give him the same motivation that he had in episode 4 of season 1 of bringing that universe back, or keeping that universe alive with Christine, again mirroring Wanda's arc in Multiverse of Madness, how her whole arc in that film was basically the same as WandaVision, bringing her dead loved ones back. And so he definitely got the Wanda treatment in this. And so that was disappointing, because I didn't like what they did with Wanda in Multiverse of Madness. So yeah, I didn't like what they did with Strange here, even though it was cool visually to see him fight Peggy and Kahori with all that stuff going on. I just feel like it really undoes his character development, which is also quite annoying. But something else that I found quite annoying in this episode was how overpowered they made Peggy. Like, come on. At the end there, I was locked in and really enjoying the episode and really enjoying all sort of the cameos that we got. You know, Zombie Wanda, Killmonger, Thanos was in there. They bring back Hela for a little bit, and Wenwu with the 10 rings. She just became so overpowered, Peggy did. And so did Kahori with the 10 rings and Mjolnir. But Peggy got like a massive god sword, all 6 infinity stones, Hela's fucking helmet. And please tell me how she didn't die straight away when she punched out Strange holding all 6 infinity stones. Like, what the fuck? I think that's so stupid and honestly completely overwrites everything that happened in the MCU previously with Bruce and Thanos and Tony Stark. She should have died from that. I think that would have made it a lot better for a finale. We're in our top 3 now. Episode 5, What If Captain Carter Fought the Hydra Stomper? I thought this episode was terrific. This is when the season really started to get good and really, really great and a lot better than season 1. Before I get into this episode, I will say, What If Season 2 was leagues and leagues better than Season 1. I really had a great time. But anyway, this episode was fantastic. It was such an amazing blend of the Black Widow film and Black Widow mythology, blended with like Winter Soldier and Captain America, sort of marrying those two concepts and films together into one beautiful 30-minute episode. I thought it was fantastic to see the return of Melina, voiced by Rachel Weisz. That was awesome to see, and she had an amazing metal suit on. It just looked cool. The visuals were fantastic. The stuff with Steve and Peggy, I really did like, and I like how he betrayed her. This felt like a whole movie, to tell you the truth. Like, when it was done, I felt like I had watched a whole film about this, right? But it was only 30 minutes. I thought it was so fantastic. The visuals were amazing. The whole like sort of not undercover, but fake stereotypical American town as like a cover for the Red Room. I thought that was incredible, and that looked so amazing visually, and I loved it. Yeah, I thought this was great. I really, really did. I thought the stuff with Steve and Peggy was really emotional at some points, like when they were talking underneath like the gondola thing in the fake American town. I thought that was cool. Yeah, this was a really great episode, and I got to tell you, Lake Bell did a really good job voicing Black Widow in this episode. She really did sound like Scarlett Johansson at some points, and that really enhanced my viewing experience for this episode. Now, one criticism I will make is that I think Peggy Carter, they sort of need to let her go as a protagonist for this series, because the What If series, she's been the protagonist, right? Like, she clearly is the protagonist. I think they need to let her go, because like at some point Peggy might overstay her welcome. As much as I enjoy her, which I do, you know, even though they do make her basically into a god in the finale, I think they got to let her go, because most people on Twitter, from what I've seen, do not like her, and I feel like she's overstayed her welcome. She has been here since the first Captain America film. She's been in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. She had an Agent Carter TV show. She returned in Multiverse of Madness and in Ant-Man and in this. I think she's overstayed her welcome, but look, from what I'm seeing of her in What If, I'm enjoying, you know, but I just think they should let her go at this point. But still, it was still great to see. Also, who knew how great a Black Widow Peggy Carter team up would be? It was really awesome, and I was really loving seeing their dynamic, their character dynamic and interactions too. They were really cool, they were really natural, and I really would love to see more of this type of stuff in live action. But yeah, so we'll see. But also, that opening, like the mirroring Winter Soldier, was so cool. It really, really was. So yeah, I had a great time with this episode, and that ending, that amazing cliffhanger, was so cool, with Wanda dragging her through the portal saying she will save our world with Nick Fury. It was amazing. I loved it. So yeah, that's my ranking for episode 5 of What If. Taking my number 2 spot is What If the Avengers Assembled in 1602, picking up from that cliffhanger that we had in episode 5, where Wanda brings Peggy into the 1602 world to help save their world from the dimensional rifts that keep occurring. What a fucking awesome episode, man. Like, this truly was so great. It felt like an Avengers reunion. The voice cast for this episode in particular was crazy. We had Samuel L. Jackson, Chris Hemsworth, Tom Hiddleston, Elizabeth Olsen, Mark Ruffalo, Paul Rudd. I mean, Haley Atwell, Jon Favreau. It was insane, the voice cast for this. Sebastian Stan. Like, I could keep going. It was crazy. This must have been the most expensive episode of animated television in a long time. I can tell you that much. But yeah, it was awesome. It was amazing to see King Thor and sort of that like underdeveloped Thor that we got in the first Thor movies, arrogant, you know, controlling, stuff like that. Was really cool to see. It was so great. I loved it. Was sort of like Civil War again, but back in 1602, like a miniature version of Civil War with like you know, Fury, Wanda, and Thor versus, you know, Stark, Captain America, and you know, Captain Carter, basically. But then eventually there is like a sort of a twist that we'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, it was so awesome. These characters in particular fit so well with 1602, like especially Thor and Wanda. Like Wanda being like the King's Witch is very like Game of Thrones sort of what was it, like the Red Woman or something? That was her name, right? I forgot her name, but you know, the witch from Game of Thrones. That's what she reminded me of, at least. Now, one thing about this episode that kind of bothered me was some of the mythology with Wanda bringing in Peggy from another universe. So you're telling me that this whole time Wanda was able to open portals to other universes? Then what was the whole point of Multiverse of Madness? That really bugs me. And so I'm going to try and forget about that and just be like, oh, you know, maybe just this version of Wanda has that ability. But so yeah, we'll just try and move past that. But yeah, everything was so great with the characters. Hulk being the Man in the Iron Mask was so cool. That reveal was amazing. Peggy was even really good in this episode. Tom Hiddleston returning as Loki was cool, as like a Shakespearean actor. That's so perfect for Loki. It really is. That fight at the end where Fury and Wanda sort of betray Thor to get Stark and Peggy to reveal the Forerunner who's causing these rifts, and it ends up being Steve Rogers, the Man Out of Time, who's literally the Man Out of Time again. And for this whole episode to basically be a what if Captain America accidentally punched the Time Stone instead of, you know, Thanos' gauntlet in an Infinity War. Like, what an amazing concept for an episode to have like one little moment spawn off all of this. That's really cool. But yeah, it was cool to see a lot of the power-ups with, like, we saw Wanda holding off a like incursion basically while also holding off like King Thor. That was fucking awesome to see. It was just so cool to see these characters return with their original voices. I loved this episode. I thought it was fantastic. The visuals of 1602 were fantastic too. So yeah, a really solid episode and a really solid season. Pretty much everything was great in this episode. I really loved it. So yeah, this is my number 2. Taking my number 1 spot is What If Hela Found the 10 Rings. This episode was shocking. It was truly great. This was a great episode of television. Like, really. It was amazing to see Cate Blanchett come back as Hela, and to see her thrown into this environment with Wenwu and the 10 Rings and Ta Lo. Like, what a mashup that I didn't know I needed. It was so beautiful, and to see Hela get the character development that we never got to see her get, you know? To see what it was like being, like, on her side, being a child of Odin. And, you know, what that looks like and what pressure she's under. Like, when she said, she like sort of spilled her like motivations out to I forget her name, but the lady at Ta Lo who was training her. And we get a lot of what's underneath the surface of Hela in this episode, and that's what I thought made it so great, was her character development. And it didn't feel rushed either. It was all done in approximately 30 minutes, and again, it felt like a movie. It felt like a full movie, and that was awesome to see. I loved seeing Wenwu and Hela team up. The visuals were incredible. It's very reminiscent of some anime scenes. Like, you know how anime does fantastic action scenes? That's what it looked like there in the end. It was terrific. It was amazing to see Odin in this light too, because, you know, Odin, we know that Odin's a bad father and like a borderline villain basically, and it was really cool to see that version of him in this. I really loved that. It was also really cool to see Hela be like stripped of her power in the beginning, and then still have her be able to fight. Like, she's not completely useless without her powers, and that's something I love. Like, Thor, he was borderline useless without his powers, and so it's sort of interesting to see how Hela is not. And Hela is obviously, you can see she's more naturally mature than like he is, and so that was cool to see represented in like how they prepared for not having their powers. But yeah, I also loved how Odin casting out Hela was very much a parallel to Odin casting out Thor, and doing the exact same spell on her helmet as he did on his hammer was amazing. And to see her struggle to lift it, it was so great. And a lot of the comedy worked in this episode for me too. I really thought Cate Blanchett did a fantastic job recapturing that sort of natural comedic element that Hela has and that she had in Thor Ragnarok without the help of Taika Waititi. So yeah, I thought this episode was so fantastic. It was so amazing to see these two corners of the MCU mash, and to see this further development of Hela into becoming from the goddess of death to the goddess of light in an epic sequence where her suit turns white, she gets her powers back. Oh, it was amazing, you know? And instead of being worthy, she needed to have mercy. So we needed to show mercy, which is just so brilliant for the goddess of death. I loved this episode. It even edged out the 1602 episode, which I also thought was fantastic. So yeah, that speaks volumes for how great this episode was. And I really hope to get more stuff like this in season 3, because this season, like the second half of it especially, was so great. Like truly some of the best Marvel stuff we've gotten in a while. And Marvel are not doing anything to promote this show. I mean, it's very disappointing to see and very disheartening, because season 3 has been greenlit, which is good. We got a little clip of that released a few days ago, which I'm very excited for. I doubt that will come out anytime soon though. It'll probably be end of next year at the earliest, probably. But yeah, it's a shame to see Marvel not promote this show, because this season has been great, especially the second half. And I know there are people who really enjoy the first half too, so that's good to see. But yeah, overall, What If Season 2 I thought was a massive success for Marvel, quality wise. I had a great time with it. I really enjoy the one episode a day release strategy too. It's really fun, like, because when an episode ends, you're like, oh no, and then you realize you don't have to wait a week. It's tomorrow. The next episode comes out tomorrow. So that was awesome to see. But yeah, so overall, that was my ranking for What If Season 2. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Let me know your rankings. Did you enjoy this season as much as I did? Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.